Well, welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living, Texas Hill Country. I am Beth Warren, the spiritual leader here at CSL, and I will be bringing you the lesson today. So also welcome to the final month of 2021 and the official beginning of the holiday season. And welcome to the months that can bring out great joy and connection for people, or possibly stress, anxiety, and even depression. So wherever you are on the holiday continuum, we welcome you here this month. And it is my hope and prayer that you will be nurtured and nourished by your experience. And in the month of December, we celebrate the birth of Jesus. Now, in New Thought movement, religious science and unity in particular, we do not exclusively celebrate the birth of the man, but rather we expand our celebration to the birth of the cosmic Christ in all of us, using the man as the master teacher or the way shower. And a man by the name of Stephen Mitchell, in his book, The Gospel According to Jesus, wrote this: "We can't begin to see who Jesus was until we remove the layers of interpretation which the centuries have interposed between us and him, and which obscure his true face, like coat after coat of lacquer upon the vibrant colors of a masterpiece. The portrait of Jesus that emerges from the authentic passages in the Gospels is of a man who was emptied himself of the mental trappings and spiritual baggage that separated him from the true life of spirit. His trust in God was as natural as breathing, and in God's presence, he himself was fully present. And in his very language, he reflected God's deep love for everything that is earthly, for the sick and the despised, for the morally admirable as well as the repugnant, and for the weeds as well as the flowers, for the lions as well as the lambs. He taught that God's compassion embraces all people. There are no preconditions for it, nothing we need to do first, and nothing we have to believe. When we are ready to receive it, it is there. And the more we live in its presence, the more effortlessly it flows through us." I just think that's a beautiful statement. And we will deepen into some of its meaning this month as we celebrate what it means to live from a place of cosmic or Christ consciousness. And today we're putting on the Christ. But before we do, I want to share with you a story. Now, it may not be an entirely factual story because Snooper says it isn't, or Snopes or whatever that site is that I've gone to, but it's a good one and it applies to our work today, this morning. So we will look at it as a parable, as many of the stories in the Bible are. But it is told that a seminary professor was vacationing with his wife in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And one morning they were eating breakfast at a little restaurant there, hoping to have a quiet family meal. And while they were waiting for their food, they noticed a distinguished looking white-haired man moving from table to table and visiting with the guests that were there. And the professor leaned over and whispered to his wife, "I hope he doesn't come over here." But sure enough, the man did come over to their table. And the man said to them, says, "Where are you folks from?" And he was being very friendly. And the seminary professor said, "Oklahoma." And he said, "Well, great to have you in Tennessee," the stranger said. "What do you do for a living?" "I teach at a seminary," he replied. "Oh, so you teach preachers how to preach, do you? Well, I've got a really great story for you." And with that, the gentleman pulled up a chair and he sat down at the table with the couple. And the professor groaned and thought to himself, "Great, just what I need, another preacher story." Well, the man started like this. He said, "See that mountain over there?" He was pointing out the restaurant window. "And not far from the base of that mountain, there was a boy born to an unwed mother. He had a hard time growing up because every place he went, he was always asked the same question: 'Hey boy, who's your daddy?' Well, whether he was at school or in the grocery store or the drugstore, people would ask the same question: 'Who's your daddy?' And he would hide at recess and lunchtime from the students because he wanted to avoid going into the stores because not being able to answer that question hurt him. And when he was about 12 years old, a new preacher came to town to their church. And the little boy would always go in late and slip out early to avoid hearing the question, 'Who's your daddy?' from the new preacher. But one day the new preacher said the benediction so fast that the little boy got caught and had to walk out with the crowd. And just about the time he got to the back door, the new preacher, not knowing anything about him, but put his hand on his shoulder and asked him, 'Son, who's your daddy?' But he could feel the eyes of those around him looking at him. And now everyone would finally know the answer to the question, 'Who's your daddy?' And this new preacher, though, sensed the situation around him and tapping into his intuition, said to that scared little boy, 'Wait a minute, I know who you are. I see the family resemblance now. You are a child of God.' And with that, he patted the little boy on the shoulder and said, 'Boy, you've got a great inheritance. Go and claim it.' And with that, the boy smiled and walked out of the door a changed person. He was never the same again. And from then on, whenever anybody asked him, 'Who's your daddy?' he'd just tell them, 'I'm a child of God.'" The distinguished gentleman got up from the table and said, "Isn't that a great story?" The professor responded that it really was a great story, and he thought he would actually share it with some of his seminary students. But as the man turned to leave, he said, "You know, if that new preacher hadn't told me that I was one of God's children, I might not have amounted to anything." Well, the seminary professor and his wife were stunned. And he called the waitress over and asked her, "Do you know who the man who was that was just sitting at our table?" And the waitress grinned and said, "Of course, hon. Everybody here knows him. That's Ben Hooper. He's the former governor of Tennessee." And again, in the words of Stephen Mitchell's in his book, The Gospel According to Jesus, he went on to say, "God's compassion embraces all people. There are no preconditions for it, nothing we need to do first, nothing we have to believe. And when we are ready to receive it, it is there. And the more we live in its presence, the more effortlessly it flows through us. We don't have to do anything or be anything in order to receive God's love and compassion. There are no preconditions for it. It is bestowed on all of us, whether it's a fatherless little boy from Tennessee or you or me. And when we're ready to receive it, it is there. And this is such an important thing to remember. When we are ready to receive it, it is there. I'm not sure you're familiar with James Dillett Freeman's poem, "I Am There," but I've read it before to you, but I've read it often. But for me, it never loses its power. And we're going to hear it again, if you're willing, but in just a little bit. But for now, I want to go to the story in the New Testament of Zacchaeus. And it's a great example of when we are ready to receive it, it is there. Zacchaeus was a materially centered person. He was obscured from seeing the truth, and he was a tax collector, and perhaps, just perhaps, taking advantage of people for his own gain. But he was in a position where he was ready for a change, that longing or desire or discontent, but he was longing for something greater. Life wasn't working for him like he wanted, and something in him was waking up. He knew there was more to life, and he was wanting to experience that. And he heard about the person named Jesus walking the land and changing people's lives. And so something in him said he needed to see. So when Jesus came into his town, he was excited and joined the crowds to listen to him and to see him. Except there was a bit of a problem for Zacchaeus. Anyone know what it was? If you know the story in the Bible. He was short. So short, he couldn't see a thing and probably couldn't hear anything either. And he was completely lost in the crowd. But he was determined to see Jesus. So he decided to run ahead of the crowd and climbed a sycamore tree so that he could see above the crowd when Jesus passed by. And when Jesus did pass by the tree, he sensed something which caused him to look up. And there he saw the man sitting in the tree. And he immediately knew that this man was ready to receive something new in his life. And so he said to Zacchaeus, "Make haste, come down, for today I must abide in thy house." So it brings to mind the beautiful passage that's in the Bible. And it says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man will open up, I will come in and sup with him." So no matter where you are in consciousness, all you have to do is knock or climb a tree, meaning be willing to receive the love of God, and you will find the new experience. Zacchaeus was, like I said, very materially wealthy. He had all that he could possibly have, but he knew that he had not attained all that he could be. So he made a new commitment with life. He took a look at himself from a higher level of consciousness and caught a vision of his Christ self. And it started with his willingness to receive. So I'm asking you this morning, are you willing to receive the love of God? Or are you blocking it? I hope you're willing to receive the love of God. And the more we are willing to not only receive, but then to live in its presence, to put on the Christ, the more effortlessly it flows through us. In the Science of Mind textbook, Ernest Holmes wrote this: "It was impossible for Jesus not to have become Christ. As the human gave way to the divine, as the man gave way to God, as the flesh gave way to spirit, as the will of division gave way to the will of unity, Jesus, the man, became a living embodiment of the Christ." And Holmes continued to write this: "As the human gives way to the divine and all people, they became the Christ." And in Talks on Truth by Charles Fillmore, who was the co-founder of Unity with his wife, he said this: "Jesus recognized his identity in God as the Christ, the Son of God. So each of us is a son of God. We shall become into conscious recognition of this Christ mind, affecting the junction between our mind and God's mind just as soon as we let go of the limitations in the mortal sense. It is our spiritual mandate to let our humanness give way to our divinity so that we too may become a Christ. It is our spiritual mandate to live in the presence of God's love so that it can effortlessly flow through us. And this is a perfect time of year for us to be reminded of this, to take on the body of Christ. And Jesus gave us this formula of how to do this when he said, "Ye must be born anew." And he meant that we must be reborn to the awareness of the Christ potential within all of us, the light of God within us, so that it may spring forth into expression and illuminate our lives. We must live in its presence so it can flow through us. And so this is the consciousness I invite you to bring to the table this month. And when you see the lights on the houses, on the Christmas trees, don't just look at them and marvel at how beautiful they are. Know that they represent the light within you. And when you fill your home with Christmas candles, don't just think about the dramatic effect they have on your room and the great mood they set. Know that they represent the light within you. And in all you do, be joyous. Know that your joy is infectious and it spreads, reaching out like light. And as you do your holiday shopping, know that it's not the dollar value on the gift or really even the gift itself, but the fact that the gift is a physical representation of your light, which you are sharing with those you care about. And I particularly love this idea. When you go to holiday parties or family gatherings, yes, enjoy the wonderful food, in moderation, of course, but use your holiday feast to symbolize the feast of the pure substance of spirit, which is ever accessible to you. And to paraphrase the meaning of a meal according to the Metaphysical Body Bible Dictionary by Charles Fillmore, he wrote this: "The feast of the pure substance of spirit is ever accessible to the individual. Before one can participate fully of the substance of spirit, there must be a willingness to turn the attention to the ideas of spirit to the exclusion of all outer attractions. Having turned our attention to the invisible substance, we move upon it with our thoughts and words of truth, in faith, believing that our words are instantly fulfilled or filled full in spirit." So use the trappings of this holiday season to remind you to put on the Christ, the consciousness of cosmic Christ, and let it flow through and around and as you. And as nothing speaks more beautifully to putting on the Christ consciousness than does James Dillett Freeman's poem, "I Am There," I'm going to use it as our closing prayer for this lesson. Do you need me? I am there. You cannot see me, yet I am the light you see by. You cannot hear me, yet I speak through your voice. You cannot feel me, yet I am the power at work in your hands. I am at work, though you do not understand my ways. I am at work, though you do not understand my works. I am not strange visions. I am not mysteries. Only in absolute stillness beyond self can you know me as I am, and then put but as a feeling and a faith. Yet I am here. Yet I hear. Yet I answer. And when you need me, I am there. Even if you deny me, I am there. Even when you feel most alone, I am there. Even in your fears, I am there. Even in your pain, I am there. I am there when you pray and when you do not pray. I am in you and you are in me. Only in your mind can you feel separate from me. And for only in your mind are the mists of yours and mine. Yet only with your mind can you know me and experience me. Empty your heart of empty fears. When you get yourself out of the way, I am there. You can of yourself do nothing, but I can do all. And I am in all. Though you may not see the good is there, for I am there. I am there because I have to be, because I am. Only in me does the world have meaning. Only out of me does the world take form. Only because of me does the world go forward. I am the law on which the movement of the stars and the growth of living cells are founded. I am the love that is the law's fulfilling. I am assurance. I am peace. I am oneness. I am the law that you can live by. I am the love that can cling to you. I am your assurance. I am your peace. I am one with you. I am. Though you fail to find me, I do not fail you. Though your faith in me is unsure, my faith in you never wavers, because I know you, because I love you. Beloved, I am there. And so it is.